together and working together, we can create greater and more collective impact. So we're really excited to see you here. We ask that you join in the spirit of sharing, contributing, and hopefully also take something away from this conversation too. And we'll share a little bit more at the end of the session on how you can get involved in this network too. So feel free to ask questions. It's going to be quite a very casual and interactive conversation. And I think we should dive in. Welcome, welcome. I forgot to mention, I'm dialing in from Bangkok in Thailand, and already among our panelists, we have so much diversity, people joining us from all over the world. And we'd love to hear where you are joining from as well. And we'll have a little activity to hear from all of you. But this topic is all about how do we build a talent pipeline for social impact. It's really about exploring how might we attract, retain, and develop the talent that's needed for the social impact sector and to really further social entrepreneurship, particularly in the Global South. And I have an amazing set of panelists and conversationalists joining us today. I will attempt to introduce them, but you will also get a chance to meet them individually at the end of the session and learn more about their stories and the perspectives that they are bringing throughout the conversation as well. So first and foremost, we have Leah Klein. She's actually joining us from New York. She's at the UN General Assembly this week. Leah, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us. Leah brings so much experience in Southeast Asia. She's usually based in Singapore, and she founded the Asia chapter of Make Sense, which is a network that enables change makers to do ground-up grassroots change. And they're working on some incredible initiatives. And one of the reasons why talent development has been such an interesting space for them, and I'll let Leah explain this a little bit later, is they're developing a new platform for Asia to help shine a light on the kinds of jobs and opportunities that exist in this space. So thank you so much, Leah, for joining us, especially I know it's so early for you in New York, but welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super happy to be here.
Wonderful. And next up, we have Shezia. Shezia is joining us from Amani Institute. You may have heard of it before. They are really one of the leaders in developing talent for the social impact sector and also within organizations. Organizations need to shift and change as well. And they have a presence in quite a number of Global South countries. Shezia is the COO and also currently the interim CEO. And Shezia and I have had the chance to talk about this topic on several panels, so I know she brings a lot of passion and experience. Welcome, Shezia.
Thanks so much, Stephanie.
And last but not least, we have Dr. Jonas. He is joining us from Tangaza University, and he provides strategic leadership around growth in this space. And he's bringing a really strong perspective around what does this look like within academic institutions as well. And he's the director of the Institute for Social Transformation. So Dr. Jonas, thank you so much for joining us and for bringing your perspective to this conversation.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, so this is our rockstar panel. And you can tell already they're going to be bringing a lot of different perspectives. And we want this to be a really diverse conversation. And how our session will flow is we will have a few opportunities for you as our guests in this potluck dinner to also share your perspectives. We'll have Mentimeter, and we'll ask you to also tell us what are some of the challenges you're experiencing? What are some of the solutions that you are seeing? We'll have a couple of discussion questions looking a little bit about, further upstream, how do we develop the talent that we need for this space? And then further downstream, how do we attract talent into our sector and into our entrepreneur support organizations, and how do we match them effectively? And we're going to be looking at this conversation, particularly from the lens of the Global South. There are some really important nuances that we need to consider in this space. And then finally, at the end, we invite you to stay with us as we will have little breakout rooms, and you can really meet the panelists and have one-on-one conversations. Perhaps there's a question that came up that you want to dive deeply into. You want to learn maybe more about Amani's programs or some of the initiatives at Tangaza University, or a bit more about the platform that Make Sense is developing. So there'll be a chance to meet one-on-one with our panelists. So without further ado, let's do a little bit of a check-in today. I'm going to ask Shami to, open up the slide. Wonderful. And this is a bit of a warm-up question. We're going to ask you to jump onto menti.com. If you're at a computer, you're welcome to add this into your browser, menti.com, or even on your phone as well. And you can use the code that's up here at the top, 37192668. And we'd love for you to answer this question for us. What motivates you to share your creativity and ideas with peers? And we'll get a bit of a word cloud to sense what's in the room. What motivates you to share your creativity and ideas with peers? And panelists, you're also so welcome to answer this question as well. It's a check-in for everyone. Reciprocity, collective impact. Impact, wonderful. The opportunity to do better. People power, I like that, I like that. Another for reciprocity, enrichment, synergy. Okay, we can see this is, our word cloud is starting to grow. Wonderful, thank you everyone. So we can see that you know how to use Menti already. That was our test run. And in the next question, we'd like to know, from which country are you joining us from? Which country are you joining us from? This should be an easy one. India, Kenya, Philippines, Nepal. Oh, okay. So Kenya is large. We got quite a few folks from Kenya then. Great. United States. I'm in Thailand, so I should add that one there as well. Fantastic. All right. And last but not least, we have one more question. We'd love to know who's in the room. So what best describes your organization? We have a couple of choices here. So maybe perhaps you're an incubator, you're an accelerator. Maybe you are a networked organization. Okay, let's have a look at the results. Ooh, we're quite an even spread here. We have 2 entrepreneurs in the room, 2 membership organizations, network organizations, 1 academic institution, consultant, and 2 incubators and accelerators. Oh, 3 incubators and accelerators. We're tied. Okay. Great. Very interesting. Very interesting. So we don't have government institutions, investors, or funders and donors in this space, but this gives us a good sense of when we're talking about this topic of developing talent and attracting talent, from what perspectives are we bringing? This is super helpful for our panelists as well. Thanks all for participating in our little warm-up check-in. So one of the things we'd also like to source from you is understanding what some of the key challenges are that you've experienced already in the talent sector. And this will help us to understand, why is it that you've come to this session? And perhaps as we're a small group, I might invite you to answer this question in the Zoom chat. So what is it that has brought you to this session? What are some of the key challenges that you're experiencing in talent? You probably arrived here because you might be curious for yourself and for your organization, or maybe these are challenges that you've experienced. But what are the challenges that you've experienced in talent? And while we're waiting for you to respond in the Zoom meeting chat, I'd love to do a quick circle with our panelists to answer this question. All of you have been working in this space for many years. And when you think about the talent gap or the talent challenge, particularly as an entrepreneur support organization, what are some of the key challenges or trends that you're seeing? And I might start with Shezia. We'll go to Jonas, and then we'll finish with Leia to do a quick circle. Over to you.
Right.
Thanks, Stephanie. I think my answer is going to make Leah happy because I think the biggest challenge that we face as an organization, but also that we've seen with entrepreneur support organizations that we've worked with, has been finding the right people and making sure that the right people are finding the right jobs within the sector. I can't tell you the number of conversations I've been part of where there have been enough people who've said, where do we find these jobs, and where should we look, how do we know about this? So Leah, thank you for doing what you're doing, because I think that's very much needed. But yeah, I think just like finding the right talent, and I think something that we've seen within Amani Institute as an organization also is just like finding people who not only have the right skill set, but who are also mission aligned. It's so important in the sector, and we've realized this is important also for like building longer careers within the sector is mission alignment. And so one of the things that we're constantly trying to do is for ourselves, but also with other organizations, help them even, clearly articulate what the mission is and really understand what that is, so that they can find the right people who really understand and align with that. And I think after, of course, when you find the right talent, it's doing the things to retain them, to grow them. There's so much churn in the sector, and we're seeing so many people move and change jobs, and that can't possibly be, I mean, it's good when you're able to like spend enough time with an organization to be able to create that impact. And so we're really trying to help organizations do the right things internally so that they're able to grow their people in ways in which they can support that, become that next line, and not leave the entrepreneurs or the founders alone in the room.
Thank you so much for sharing. And it sounds like there's a lot of interest in the space, but there is sometimes this gap between I'm interested, but how do I play a role? How do I play a role in this sector? Fantastic. And I wanted to move on to Jonas and to hear your perspective. And I also saw a note in the chat from Lillian, speaking a little bit to this experience at a very early stage career path. Would love to hear your thoughts on what do you see as the biggest challenges in this area?
Yeah, first, what I see as one major challenge is talent identification. That we don't take time to identify the challenge, the talent that exists. Especially I would also be talking from academic point of view, from the space where I am. And the second thing, we don't support talent. I think I see also as a major challenge. We are not deliberate in supporting the talent. What happens if young people, we see certain talent in young people? Do we support that? Okay. The other element which I see lacking is lack of trust in these people who we can consider to have talent. Because to develop talent, you need to trust that, okay, I've identified some talent in this person. I can trust that this person can develop that talent. And that's what I realized is that we waste talent. Okay, we waste talent because we don't pay attention. We don't support the talent. We don't give them the space, the chance, to grow people, to grow their talent. Okay, and from the academic point of view, we are let me call it the home of talent production. Let me call it that way. But that is what we are supposed to do. We are supposed to produce talent that's for a society. But I have the impression, my experience is that we are not putting enough emphasis on talent identification, talent development, trusting talent, and supporting talent in the work that we do.
Absolutely, and perhaps speaks to how do we create these spaces to nurture that and test and experiment and give trust very early on. What is the role? Something I'd love to discuss later is what is the role in academic institutions, particularly mainstream institutions, in enabling this? But you brought up a fantastic point. And I'll pass on to Leah as well. I'm curious to hear your perspectives. You are also spanning the region of Southeast Asia. What are some of the trends that you're seeing, or what do you see as the biggest challenges in this space?
Yeah, thank you. For me, there is different things. I'm going to talk from the make sense perspective of us recruiting also those talents, but also like why we are launching this platform in Southeast Asia. The first thing that we really see is that if your incubator, or like if, for instance, you're at the early stage of your project, your brand is not well known and you don't have the same marketing resources or whatsoever to make your brand known. And that's a massive challenge. So you have to work a lot on building your brand organically, and that takes a lot of time for enablers or like social impact organizations. And on the other hand, like those careers of being, I don't know, a community manager or an incubation manager are not well known yet. So people are not aware that such career path exists. We like people like when they're in school, they are more trained to more like traditional career orientation. So that's something that also needs to be more aware. And the reality in Southeast Asia is that there are not a lot of content that document this. When it's the case, it will mostly come from the Western world, from the US, from Europe. And even when you look at the social impact job boards, like the one that most time call themselves like global, 80% of the offers would be in the United States. So it's not adapted where like the more generalist job board in Southeast Asia and I guess maybe in East Africa or other region, they have difficulties like really uh, putting a label or like segmenting properly like the impact jobs. So they're a bit lost in the middle of all the other jobs that exist. And the last thing related to this is also like most times they cost money and those enablers they don't have massive like recruitment funds. So we need to find like a business model that help identify these talents, make the brand known, but that are not also too costly for the organization. Then I will talk later about something else that for me is very keen is also like the imaginary that we have about having a successful career in Southeast Asia that is not necessarily, we're not necessarily encouraging people to go in the social impact space. And that's something that we also have to work on.
Absolutely. You brought up some really important points that are also very culturally informed and around the context that exists in the global South compared to other economies. And I think that's important to put into focus here because we have very different challenges and that means different solutions are required to what we're necessarily seeing in other parts of the world. And just to center in a little bit on this, the topic of developing talent, because this has been mentioned a few times, I'm curious to hear about what you think the skills, what are the core skills that we actually need to be able to embed to prepare young people or anyone, even people transitioning into our sector? What are the most important and core skills that they need to succeed? And this can be at an entrepreneur support organization or within social impact organization. As I look back and I realize I stumbled into this space. There weren't formal pathways into this work. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And we can do this popcorn style. So if you have something to share, feel free to raise your hand and jump in. What are the core skills needed?
Let me go first.
Go ahead.
I think for me one the first skills is problem solving skills, and because what is needed today is the ability of people to look at problem and think through those problems and solve them. Otherwise we will not be doing service to society if we are not solving those problems. So from where I start, I think that what I stress is that the skills that should be developed is problem solving. The second is questioning. For me, it's very extremely important that we develop these questioning skills in our young people, in our students, because if you are not able to question, then especially in the era where there is so much that we are bombarded from all sides, and then we tend to kind of absorb everything. If we are not able to develop the skills of questioning, then I think we will not fit in the society. And my last thing is what I will call social empathy. Okay? So this also be attentive to what is out there in the society and a feel for a society, and then be able to do good to society. I think for me those would be the three key things. Yeah.
Thanks, Jonas.
I'm going to go next because I want to say ditto to everything Jonas said. For us also, one of the things that we as a Mani Institute have been talking about for all the 11, 12 years that we've been around always front and center has been problem solving, creativity, innovation. It's one of those things that I wish, when I was thinking about just even the thought about questioning and how as a student in school in India, if you asked questions, you were considered a problem child. And so that, the curiosity and the ability to
Yeah.
be able to feel curiosity and ask the questions is something that just isn't there. And it's something that we're now having to like really learn as adults and realize that this is actually good, like having a curiosity about the world, asking questions, questioning the status quo. I mean, that's what's needed right now, and I think that's something that we've seen. So um and yeah, I think like creativity, problem solving, innovation has always been front and center for us. It's the stuff that we've created, 1 year fellowships around also on just innovation, because we know it's so important and we know that it's not getting covered in multiple other training and educational organizations. And we feel like that's the key for any sort of social impact career. And I think the second and most important for us that we've seen is leadership. And within the leadership space, and we've seen like a few key topics, especially in the past few years, things like being able to manage change. Because change is the only constant. I think we've all seen this now, and we're all seeing. I mean, even when I'm reading Aditi's comments about like building culture and connections virtually, like the thought of virtual organizations, what do those workspaces look like? Being able to upgrade yourselves as an organization to be able to like make your impact in these new environments, in these new work environments, it's a lot. And we're all operating, I think, when you're looking at the global south, these are resource constrained environments for the most part. And this is where we're getting left behind. We're getting left behind on things like being able to manage change well, thinking about things like resilience and how do we develop resilient leadership, but also like resilience within our staff to be able to be agile, to be able to, respond to change and not look at change as something that's scary and we want to stay away from, but really embrace it. And we have some employees in our organization who are fantastic. I mean, leads who are just like really good at like, who don't get phased by change. And then there are others who are just like, why are we in this state of limbo? And we get it, right? Like, so I think it's the change management, it's the resilience, like these parts of leadership, being able to make decisions, balance polarities that you're, encountering on a day-to-day basis, because there's so much happening, and being able to make those decisions with tools, with frameworks that you have like a pocketbook to be able to say, I'm at a stage where I need to make a decision. What's the best way in which I evaluate it? So I think leadership and problem solving are the two big themes we see. And sort of we create everything around those two big buckets overall.
That's a really fantastic example. And I think particularly around navigating change. I mean, in our work in social change, we are stewarding change. So we must be adaptive to moving through and with it. And sometimes it's seen as it's something we should avoid. And I wonder if this has much to do with conflict avoidance, which sometimes is a big part of at least the cultures that I've grown up in. But thank you for sharing that perspective, and really, really interesting as well to feel that these are tools that actually can be applied in all other areas of our work, but are fundamental to the change-making work that we want to do. And Leah, anything you want to add to this particular conversation?
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what they shared because I'm super, I totally agree with this. For me, like another thing that we have to realize also is the people who are like in our workspace, like really like what we need is conveners, people who have the capacity to convene like others, groups, individuals, etc. And it's something that really we don't necessarily prepare people for. And um, to the speakers uh, like previous parts on like, oh, we need to build a leadership, etc. That's something I really advocate for. Also, it's really a question of posture. For me, like you, because many times you incubate, for instance, startups that have like come from different industries, etc. So you can't be an expert on like every social or environmental issues, and that's absolutely fine. I think what is expected from those who accompany those projects is really like to create trust, to reassure, to guide, to be a connector, connect the dots, and have the capacity to build a network around those entrepreneurs. So it's really like a whole posture that we don't necessarily train you for. And I would say particularly for women or people who don't identify as male. Um, like if you look at it, like I don't know how is it for you, but it makes sense. I would say that 70% of our workforce are female, or at least people who don't identify as male. And the reality is, if you're always looking at people who are very like self-confident, aware of themselves, you will always attract people who are more privileged. So how do you like really make sure that people feel confident in themselves and confident to accompany others and build the right network around them? And that for me, when you recruit people who have this capacity, you can do beautiful things with your entrepreneurs, and then they can learn all the technical skills of project management, event planning, multitasking. That's absolutely fine. For me, it's really more what we call the soft skills. I like here in New York, I heard people saying the power skill. I will also identify it this way.
I like that reframe, power skills. That's a really nice one. And thank you for bringing also this lens around how do we do talent development in an inclusive way. There's two things that feels also very interesting for me is how might we mainstream the access to developing these skill sets within education systems that don't necessarily require you privately to develop these skills in private institutions. What are the barriers to doing this? Because I think that's one aspect, is looking at these power skills and saying, how do we mainstream this within our education systems as early as possible so that they can develop the posture that you were referring to, Leah, and this posture that allows them to further develop those skill sets within places. And I wonder if we need to bring back the art of apprenticing. Jonas, you mentioned this space of being able to experiment and test and build trust. And when I think about apprenticing, we create spaces where people can do and play and try without just looking for the resume of you need to already have these skills, but do you have the attitude to develop these skills? I'm curious if you've seen spaces like this before or examples of this and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's one of the things we have realized that is extremely important. If you want to build talent for society and for organization, it has to start, from the university, the colleges, and what needs to be done exactly is to create that space for people to experiment. We need to invest. Let me put it: invest in the students to develop their talent within the university. The big mistake we make is that we let them figure out when they are finished. So they've never had the chance to experiment anything. And I think the best place to experiment and fail is in the university. And as you do that, you develop the skills that is needed for you to succeed. Okay? So the apprenticeship, I think, should be something we should adopt as a way. And we should move away. That's my vision of education. We should move away of education that is only based on getting degrees. Okay. Degree is okay, but it's not enough. It's not the degree that is going to make you succeed out there. Okay. I have a friend of mine who has a very good company, and then it's very, very difficult for his employees to leave the company. He doesn't look at your CV. He goes to university and say, what are the best students, in this university, and then, get them, give them some tasks, see what they're able to do. And then now he brings them in his company, kind of nurture them. Okay? So I also think that we focus too much on student graduating and getting their degree. Okay? That is how we create so many unemployed and let me say useless graduate, if I can call them that, because they don't fit. So if we can bring the apprenticeship and then give chance to students to try many things. I've realized when you trust young people, when you trust students, you give them the chance, you'll be amazed what they're able to do. I think that's how we can develop skill and talent. But I think we need to be deliberate in investing in those, young people with those talents. So we need to change the way education is done. I think one of the things we are doing currently in Tangaza University College is to create a space for students to experiment and learn. Okay, and this space is what we call sandbox. We call it sandbox. Sandbox, it means that any student can come and say, I have this great idea, okay, and I want to experiment it. So you support the student, you know, so that is, I think that those are the kind of spaces we need to have in our academic institution. And I think we need something also that we need. We need to connect more with the practice. Social entrepreneurs should connect more with the academics and say, this is what we need. Let's kind of collaborate so that we are able to build talent from the university.
I love those examples, and especially the social innovation sandbox initiative that you've been leading. There's a lot here that I want to bring into the solution space as well. And I think there's also some ideas already popping up for me about this is an amazing area for us as entrepreneur support organizations to be collectively building together. It's like we are building this market together and we all benefit and really from developing this ecosystem and developing this talent. So I think there's so many really interesting ways that we can do that together. And I know that we have a bit of a mixture in this room of entrepreneurs and also ESOs. And Leah, you had mentioned this particular skill set around convening and the importance of the capacity to convene, and particularly for entrepreneur support organizations, we can't succeed if we don't have the ability to collaborate and convene effectively. And I think this is the less tangible a skill set seems, the less emphasis we put on sometimes, you know, developing that skill set. So I think that's a really interesting one. I think for us as entrepreneur support organizations, how do we build and nurture talent around that, and also nurture others to apprentice with us around this type of area. But I'm just going to quickly also switch us over to, we've talked a lot about developing talent in this space. And, you know, the next challenge that we've talked about is how do we really how do we find the talent in this space and match them to the opportunities that exist? So let's imagine we're in a world where we've started to already develop fantastic talent, but how do we make these opportunities very attractive for them? How do we allow people to find them, particularly in a way that's inclusive? And how do we hire this kind of talent? So I wanted to open the floor for some ideas and also some of the challenges that you've seen in this space. How do you usually hire talent? I mean, sometimes it's funny to think about how do we do that ourselves, and then how do we encourage others to?
And Stephanie, I see we also have a hand up. I see George Kosimbe, who I think is from Kenyatta University. If we can also let him, maybe he wants to answer that question.
That would be great. Apologies, I didn't see the hand up. Would you like to share?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the introduction, Ariel. Yeah, so maybe I just wanted to make a contribution, and this is mainly around what we are discussing, you know, talent for issues around impact investment. So I think from where I sit, there is need for a lot of capacity building. Yeah, because this particular space is very, very dynamic. You know, when you talk about metrics, you know, for impact, metrics for success, they change, you know, very, very regularly. So in terms of being able to ensure that we retain talent, capacity building is very, very important, you know, so that, you know, the people we have are able to continue on, you know, being, you know, adding value to what they are doing. Yeah, so I'm rooting for capacity building, you know, which will go a long way in assisting us retain, you know, good talent, you know, within organizations, you know, the ESOs, yeah, and organizations working in this particular space, mainly because of the dynamic nature of this particular space. So thank you. I thought maybe I would throw in that component.
Thank you, George. And I think that's a really great point, particularly around continuous capacity building. We talked about developing talent at the beginning, but it's actually a continuous process. Our field is constantly changing, and these skill sets need to be nurtured. And this really links also to how do we attract talent? Because if we can demonstrate there are learning opportunities and growth opportunities, I think we can be better at articulating the growth pathways that can exist within our organizations. And that could be one of those key solutions. So thanks for highlighting that, George, that continuous capacity building is really critical.
Let me add something to the conversation there. I think something very practical I think we need to do is we need more entrepreneurs coming to the academia and talk to students to say, look, we have these opportunities. Who are the people interested in this kind of opportunity? If you have something in your organization, you have some talent you're looking for, and then bring it and then say, I need 2 or 3 people who are interested in that. And once you get them, you can say, okay, during holiday, I give you an exposure. So you come and then you fit into what the organization wants, and then you develop that person. For me, I find it also kind of complementing the apprenticeship, where collaboration between academia that are producing the talent and the social enterprise that are using the talent, this kind of collaboration and communication will help really kind of create pipeline for talent to the social impact space.
Add just a little more, Stephanie, which is, like you said at one stage during this discussion, Stephanie, you said that you sort of fell into the sector. And I think it's similar for me. I had spent 10 years in the private sector, and I knew I was waiting. I needed something more, and I was looking to get into the social impact space. But I think it took me 3 months to actually understand the depth and the breadth of the social impact sector and the different sorts of roles and the different sorts of organizations that even exist here. I mean, the words incubators, accelerators, ESOs, these are all just they're so recent right now. They were things that we never heard growing up, and it's now vocabulary. It's now where I'm hoping people are now looking and saying, I want to work with an incubator, I want to work with an accelerator growing up. And I think that's the dream, right? Where this becomes a career path right at the beginning through straight from college. But I think this is where we play a role. It's conversations like these. It's people like us who have a responsibility now to even spread awareness about the sector overall. I've taken personal responsibility for my entire friend circle, for example. I don't know if they appreciate it, but I have taken personal responsibility to educate them about this huge sector, right? And the sorts of roles and the fulfillment that you get at work. More and more studies are showing that purpose is becoming of prime importance, and being able to find a career where you are able to see purpose for your life and for what you want to do every day is such a gift. And it's becoming one of those enviable things where people look at you and say, is this for real? Do you really have a career where you're happy to wake up and go to work? And I think that's where people like us actually have that role, where we say, speak enough and put the awareness out there so that you're able to attract more people into the sector. I think we all have a role to play there as ambassadors.
That sounds like an amazing collective impact project. And I also think, moving from this accidental to very intentional career choices is a very big shift, because I absolutely agree. For a lot of us, it is accidental. But then we realize, wow, we would never go back after trying this. And we need to improve the sector. I would also say we need to improve the conditions around the sector too. And that's still a lot of work that we need to undertake. But Leah, anything you'd like to add, particularly around this sort of attracting and matching talent space?
Yeah. So for me, there are different things. So I mentioned earlier, there was this question of making those career paths more visible. So first thing is, again, when we talk about the world or global, we always look up to the Western world. So most resources that you will find online will come again from US, Europe, Australia, etc. So there is not a lot of localized content about what does it mean to work for an incubator, let's say in the Philippines, in Indonesia, in Thailand, etc. What are the different jobs that exist? What are the skills that are expected? So there is a need to develop way more content around this. So this is why with Jobs That Make Sense, yes, it's a job board, but it's also a media. We really want to make people aware, not only for the enabler space, but for the social impact space in general. What are all the opportunities so people can better understand what are the training programs they can join, because I don't know if you saw it, but there are so many training programs to join those type of jobs. The same, it's not just us who are not visible, those programs are also not visible. So just to make it like kind of clear for everybody. And I think us as an organization, we also have a responsibility, to the point of my fellow speaker, of making clearer what are the career growth paths for the employees, but also maybe like for people that they will like are in recruitment process. So they can understand like, okay, today I'm hiring you as, let's say, like a program associate. And then the next step could be this, etc. So that's how can you grow in the organization. So for instance, it makes sense you have two ways of growing. One is either like the generalist way in terms of like developing more like managerial responsibility or taking more project responsibility. But the other way is through expertise, that you decide to be an expert on circular economy, and then you will really develop the specific field of expertise. The second thing, and I really want to highlight this because I don't think we acknowledge this enough, is at least in Southeast Asia, I can't talk for other regions of the world, there is really a strong society pressure about what does it mean to have a successful career. So parents will like do anything they can to make sure that their kids can do the best studies that they can have master degrees, and really like I celebrate this, and I really admire this dedication of making sure that their kids have access to the good education. But at the same time, there is an expectation that you go work in the corporate sector, etc. And we experience it firsthand. We had people that either had to leave Make Sense because their parents were really pushing them to leave and then go work for a bank or something like this. We had people that were like, we were really trying to hire, but same because of this family pressure, we're really hesitating, and I almost had to have conversation with parents to explain that no, we are a legit organization, we are not like unprofessional or whatsoever. So I think there is a lot of things also to do around like, again, making known and celebrating those careers, so then people who are maybe from, I don't want to stigmatize, but older generation can also realize that the world is moving and it's becoming way more normal to work in the impact space. So for me, there's a lot of work around this, so then they can have like the confidence and the fun of also of like joining and going into those careers, because sometimes people are a bit scared and kind of like, okay, I'm gonna go and like I will have to really like impose my decision with my family, and something that is not easy. And just a last thing I wanted to share also with you, and that's more like a personal experience. Me, the way I recruit also talents is in our personal network. So what do I mean? Is, for instance, right now I run a fellowship program with different like change makers at our company, and I also recruit from them, and I see, for instance, the Acumen Academy in Southeast Asia, I see that they do it a lot also, where they recruit sometimes some of their fellows to join their staff because they really share the same values, they went through the same experience, etc. And because people have experienced the whole program with you, they are the best people also who can accompany the others. And for me, like for instance, there are even some workshops that we organize with Make Sense. I didn't need to recruit someone at that moment, but I sometimes I identify people who are so amazing in our workshop that I'm like, okay, I'm going to engage in a conversation with that person. And it's just, what I'm saying here is basically sometimes you have to like see if you can take the risk when you meet a great talent, of like, okay, maybe I don't have the resources right now, but I know that soon I will have to recruit. So at least how can I build a relationship with that person? And that's how, for instance, I hired my executive director for the Philippines. I didn't have the budget at that moment, but I saw that this person has such an amazing talent. I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to build a relationship, and then I'll see at which moment I'm ready to take the risk for them to join us. So that's more a personal experience, but definitely look also in the group of people that you support, because some of them might be like super happy to join, but they might not think of asking because they are part of your program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing in that personal story and experience, and also acknowledging this. If we look at this really truly is an ecosystem. There's an enabling environment that we're part of. It's a reality. There are beliefs, values, perceptions in order to change behaviors for people to say, yes, this is a legitimate career path for me. We need to acknowledge the current barriers that exist that might look invisible. And this is something unique to perhaps some of the contexts that we work in. So thank you for bringing that up, Leah, as well.
Yeah.
And I think there's opportunities for this. And I want to, we've been talking a lot about surfacing these challenges. And as we come to a close for our session today, I'd like to pivot a little bit to solutions, and also bring our audience in and ask our audience here, what are some of the solutions that you have seen in tackling some of these challenges that we've talked about today around talent, whether that's developing talent or matching talent? We'd love to know what you are seeing as some of the most promising solutions that you're quite excited about. So please join us on Menti. You can dial in from your phone again, or on a browser, menti.com, and just use this code at the top here, 37192668, and you could start adding your responses. And while we're waiting for those responses, the closing question I want to share and ask my panelists today is a little bit around your thoughts on, if we were to work together as ESOs in this sector to improve this talent challenge, what would collective solutions potentially look like? No need to make any commitments, but I'm really curious about, has this conversation maybe made you excited about, oh, this is something that we could do together to address this challenge that we're all facing? Have a think about it, and when you're ready, you can share.
Let me react to that quickly. Before I get to that, I want to say, just build on something that Shizia said before about purpose, which I think is extremely important, that we help our young people to identify their purpose in life. I think for me, that's a good starting point. And the second issue, which we can stress more, that the social impact space is a space where people can develop their career path. For now, the perception is not there. They don't see that. So that's why I think and we need more engagement between the academia and people in the impact space. So that brings me to, what can we do differently or in moving forward? I think we need more conversation, and then concreting to say, look, can we collaborate more with academia and talk to them? And can we come to the space of academia? It's not a sacred space that is reserved for some, funny people who call themselves educators or lecturers. No, it's a space where we can all come and say, let's try something here, because we have, it's a very, I call it a very privileged space, because we have in our hand the next generation of, whether social entrepreneur, innovators. We have that. So what do we do with that? I think that is why the collaboration, bringing people in the impact space into the academia, is crucial. For me, as Tangas, I think we are trying to do something differently. We are trying in our own small ways to kind of insist on this experience with the real social problem, student to experience real social problem. We are trying also to encourage this, welcoming social entrepreneur practitioner into the academia to kind of spark fire the student, so that they know, yeah, there is opportunity for them in the space of social entrepreneurship or social impact space. I think for me, we need this kind of conversation. We need this kind of working together more closely. I think that will be the way to go.
Fantastic. And Jonas, I think you are a very important bridge to these worlds and ecosystems. And I invite you, particularly through the Pollinate Impact Network, let's make that happen. Let's create that bridge together.
Definitely. Thank you.
Wonderful. Shazia, Leah?
Yeah, I can go next. I mean, I think everything on the screen, I 100% agree with. We try. I'll answer, I think, from an Amani Institute perspective and from a capacity building perspective. Like, George, thanks for I feel like I've met you through a YALI thing when I was in Nairobi, but we can cover that later on. But when it comes to capacity building and the role that we as conveners, as people who are in the space also play, a very real example is a program that we created at Amani Institute called Leadership for Growth. And this program was designed for mid to senior managers of small growing businesses. And, it was very specifically designed for this group. And we realized, especially in my personal experience of running it in India, we've had cohorts where we've had almost primarily people from incubators and accelerators, and then people from the organizations that these incubators and accelerators are working with. And it's been so interesting to just bring this group of people together and to realize, one, that the problems that exist in the space are similar. Two, that having a custom design program for these problems is of huge value. And three, like Leah said, when you bring together a group and you bring together this network, there's a feeling of I am not alone in this. And how can we actually work together to make this better? And I think that's the collective thing, right? Like you're in a small cohort, you're bringing together a group of people who now are realizing that their reality is not unique to them, that there are other people. And when you go through a shared learning experience that is actually designed for issues that you are facing, it can really take everyone's learning and everyone's job satisfaction also to a next level. So I think purely from a capacity building standpoint and a development standpoint, I would think that also is one of those collective solutions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shazia. And Leah, would you like to close us out with some ideas for collective impact?
Yeah, I just would like to give a suggestion to George about like how can we bring like social entrepreneurship in universities. Um, and I know they are quite big also in Kenya, and at least I experienced it in France and in the Philippines. There is this network called Enactus, and basically Enactus is a leadership program that accompanies students to launch social entrepreneurship projects, and it's totally free for universities, for schools, etc. And I experienced it personally, and really it changed my life. That's how I discovered this whole space, and that's how I like really understood like there was this whole universe. And I think it's really amazing what they do, because they really offer this first-hand experience, and at the same time they really make you interact with other group of students who are working on other kind of like social entrepreneurship projects or other kind of initiatives. And I think it's a great way to really see like what is out there for you to interact with other kind of students, because maybe you're like in the field of engineering or business, but you will always hang out between engineers or like business focused people, etc. And so I think it's a great way to mix everybody. So definitely, like if you need contacts, if you're interested in an access, I would be happy to connect you. I found them really amazing. And in terms of collective solution that we can work on together, I might repeat myself a bit, but again, what I mentioned earlier about making clearer and visible like the growth and career path that can exist in our organization. For me, that's really a low-hanging fruit, and that's something we could work on together. Of like, okay, like in an impact-driven incubator, like Impact Hub, makes sense, build, grow, etc. What are the jobs? And I think it would be even amazing if we could agree on the terminology of like the job titles. Because let's say, for instance, it makes sense we say like a program officer, other we say program associate. So I think it's kind of difficult to understand really like that might be a similar job. So if we can just kind of have something generic that we can easily present to make public, I think that could definitely help. And the second thing, like if we could co-create also content to talk or highlight the people that we have, what are their like how did they join, why did they join, how do they grow, etc. Because there are so many diverse people also who join our organization. Like me, I recruit as much as people who are like architects before than people who are like in sociology or psychology. So and people don't necessarily know that actually like with this set of skills you can work also in the impact space. So I'll be super happy to like organize a campaign where we can co-create content. I know it's from a global South perspective or a more specific like geography, but I think that could give a lot of visibility and excitement also for people to be more curious and discover this type of careers.
I love that. Sign me up from Impact Hub. Would love to work on that with you. And I think that's so important, aligning on that terminology, developing that unity together as a sector, and sharing those resources and opportunities. It almost sounds like even a shared communications campaign, because we can all benefit from communicating about the opportunities in the sector together rather than in fragmented ways. So I think there's some really powerful ideas and calls to action here. And I want to also acknowledge there were some fantastic contributions in Menti from the crowd, and also some great comments in the meeting chat. I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to visit everyone's questions and comments, but you will get a chance to go into breakouts and meet our panelists soon as well. So bring those questions to those conversations, particularly if there's a topic that you want to continue building on with one of the panelists. And from me, I want to say a really big thank you for joining. It's been such a pleasure to really host this conversation. It's something I'm super passionate about. And to close us out, I'd like to invite Ariel, our wonderful chief convener at Pollinate Impact, to share with you a little bit about what's next. How do we take this action forward, Ariel?
Awesome. Stephanie, thank you so much for just being such a awesome energy and moderating. And thank you so much to Leah and Shazani, and Dr. Dernis and everyone who participated. So there's a couple of things that we'd love to have you all join. In terms of taking this forward, we have a couple of ideas as a network of potential areas for talent we can potentially look at. So I think Shami is going to push a poll out. So let us know what you're interested in to engage with. And we'd really love to, get your feedback and just reconnect with you on all of these specific things. And as a member-led network, we will go where we'll follow where our members lead. So we really want to understand from the people in this room, what you're interested in and what you would like to engage with us on moving forward. So that's one. And then feel free to please follow us on LinkedIn. As Stephanie mentioned, we have a bunch of sessions. We have another one later today. We have a couple the rest of this week, and then some more next week. So please stay in touch and follow any more sessions that you would like to. Share what you learned. Use the hashtag Pollinate Potluck. So stay tuned by the website. We'll be launching our calendar of events there in the next couple of days. So after the potluck is over, it's definitely not the end. We're just getting started. So, and talent is a big priority area for us. So we'd love to stay engaged with all of you, and tell a friend, bring a friend for any future, sessions and activities that you'd like to join us on. So Tassin, if I could ask you to stop the screen share. And we have a little fun bit. I want everybody to turn their videos on before we end. So for some of you who joined us yesterday, you probably would have experienced this. So we're going to do a real quick surprise photo. So how this is going to work is I'm going to count down from 3. And then I'll say surprise. We're all going to cover our eyes. And then when we get down to 0 and we say surprise, you're going to open your eyes and you're going to have a really great surprise face. Are we good? Make sense? It's really silly, but it's a lot of fun. Okay, so Brenda, Winnie, Mercy, if we can see your lovely faces. All right, so everybody cover your eyes, cover your eyes, cover your eyes. I'll count down from 3, 3, 2, 1, surprise. And I hope someone was taking a screenshot of that. Great, so I will now ask my colleague Tassin to share a quick video before we go into breakout rooms, that shares a little bit about the story of Pollinate Impact and how we launched. So I will hand it over to Tassin.
It is estimated that more than 7,500 incubators and over 3,000 accelerators operate globally. Social impact incubators play a vital role in supporting and nurturing social enterprises. However, incubators struggle to gain visibility or the credibility needed to access consistent funding, and the incubation industry has yet to achieve recognition as a fully established industry.
We often face the same challenges related to things like strategic growth, team management, financial sustainability, etc.
Impact incubators lack a space in which they can promote a shared understanding of best practices in their work.
Two of the challenges that I think are really important for incubators to try to overcome are staffing and related to funding.
To understand the incubation industry better and to arrive at the best possible solution, we interviewed more than 50 social impact leaders from around the world, including entrepreneurs, incubators, accelerators, funders, investors, and researchers, and here's what they had to say.
By creating a network where knowledge sharing is open, where there's an openness to understand from each other's mistakes and successes.
And there's something so supportive about having this kind of community that can enable you to troubleshoot these issues, and that really helps you to focus more on this impact piece alongside the incubation that we're doing.
By bringing together the stakeholders in this network, we hope to create a larger picture of the whole and the part that each of them is playing in this.
And this is why impact leaders from across the globe came together to design a global network of impact incubators to build Pollinate Impact.
Pollinate Impact is a member-driven network of social impact incubators,
where we aim to create a thriving, resilient, and mutually supportive ecosystem for impact incubators across the global south.
We believe that by empowering, resourcing, and enabling these impact enablers,
we can collectively amplify our ability to solve the biggest problems facing the people and the planet.
Pollinate Impact is an avenue for impact incubators to connect, collaborate, and co-create a bigger impact.
In essence, we celebrate the pollination of impact.
This network has been co-designed by a group of social impact leaders, representing incubators, entrepreneurs, academia, foundations, and networks. One word that comes to mind when you think of Pollinate Impact:
synergy, amplification,
community,
collaboration,
openness.
Join us on this inspiring journey. Together, we will solve the challenges facing people and the planet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tahsin. So I will now hand it over to my colleague Shami. We want to give space and opportunity for people to connect with our speakers directly. So she'll open up a couple of breakout rooms, and feel free to join to continue the conversation, to ask some questions directly, to these awesome panelists and experts. So Shami, I will hand it over to you for next steps.
Sure, thank you. Oops. Okay. So what we are going to do is open up 2 breakout rooms. We have Shazia and Leah in one, and Stephanie and Jonas in the other. It's a self-select, so please pick a room, depending on which speakers you'd like to further engage with. I'm going to open the rooms, and then I think we have 10 minutes to chat and then come back before we wind up. Speakers, panelists, if you would, pick the room with your name and kind of be there for folks to engage with you. If anybody needs help moving to a room, please let me know. All right. We have
I'm gonna go and try and find another mouse. I don't know what I touched, but I can't see the Zoom screen at all. So I'll be back.
3 with Shazia and oops.
Wait, no, Shami, don't move me. Don't move me until just wait. I need to get a mouse. I'm like flying blind here. Just give me
Shazia,
a
do you
second.
need
The room's
help moving into a
closed.
room? Sorry, you're on mute.
No, the rooms have closed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Let me see what happened.
I mean, the rooms are closing in 1 second.
Okay, I have to
Yeah.
let it. How about now?
Back to the main session.
Sorry, there was some problem. Can you join back?
I cannot see the breakout now. Okay. Okay.
I can assign you.
No.
Okay, so I have to see this. Did it unassigned? Can you see the setting? I don't think I set a time limit. I wonder.
No, I can see the ticker, the timer.
Again?
Yeah, it says in progress 1. Okay.
Again? It's
Okay, now
again?
it says again, yeah, it's closing in 55 seconds.
I don't know what's going on.
Did you put it?
I didn't put a timer.
Well, it looks like a lot of people dropped because it looks like Zipporah is in a room with Shazia, but it looks like Jonas and Stephanie are by themselves.
Okay, so maybe you just come back and have a discussion.
I think they'll come back in 20 seconds. So sorry, that was I got another mouse. Sorry, that was a disaster.
Sorry, so we figured we can all have a discussion here since there's not a lot of people and there's some issue with the breakout room timer. So we will just use it to our convenience. So I'm sorry for breaking a conversation, but can continue here.
And if there are no questions, then we can wrap up. Oh, Zipporah, were you about to say something?
Maybe, Rhea, if I could get your question, what you had asked before we got kicked out of the room.
No, just curious to know more about your programs and your specific focus areas. But maybe that's a conversation we can.
All right, I can post the link on the chat, but if any question or anything to follow up, we can follow up on one-on-one.
Awesome. See, loving connections are already being made. So fabulous. Well, I'll take this opportunity to thank again Jonas, Shazia, Leah, and Stephanie. This is an awesome conversation, and it gave us, I think, so much food for thought, not only as a network, but also to the participants who were so engaged throughout the conversation. So thank you all, and we really look forward to engaging with you further as we get action hitting the road with these networks this network activity. So we'll definitely be in touch with all of you and hope to engage with you in the coming weeks. So thank you and have a lovely rest of your day, wherever you are, morning, afternoon, evening.